All right, Markdown blocks. What are Markdown blocks? We've started talking about Markdown, and we talked about Markdown headings as the very first thing. But the truth is that a heading is just one type of Markdown block. Um, a Markdown document is separated into multiple blocks. And in order to understand Markdown, this is very, very important. In fact, it's impossible to parse modern Markdown without two passes through the document. The first pass breaks up all of the document into blocks, and the second pass takes those blocks and operates on each block almost as if it was its own document, its own entity, so to speak. So there has to be two passes. And this is because of some of the conventions that have made it very easy to organize readable content, which was the goal of Markdown, created by writers and not scientists. But it makes it extremely hard to parse if you don't understand this. But understanding this idea of blocks is super important as you're writing it. And at least one of you is going to say, "You mean bullets and paragraphs?" Yes, that's what I mean. So let's get into it. Here are all of the block types in Markdown. So we're going to go back to our GitHub repo. You should already have one of these. And you see already it says sample here, right? I'm actually going to rename this one. This is actually about headings. And I'm going to go to the code, and I want to change this one about headings that we did in another video. I'm going to call it headings. Okay, so let's actually call it notes. We could say Markdown or MD headings, right? So MD is the standard extension for that. That's pretty much the one you should use. There's many that are supported, but that's the one I suggest. And we're going to commit that change, and that's going to rename MD headings to there. So let's make a new document here. Add file. We're going to add, this time we're gonna add MD, and we could put this in our own subdirectory or all kinds of things. But let's call it MD blocks. Okay, .md. In this case, you do want suffixes. I did make a video about stop naming your scripts with suffixes. This is not the same thing, right? This is, you definitely want suffixes here. So we're going to go ahead and commit that. We're going to make a new file, and we're going to go edit this file with our editor. There's actually multiple ways of editing. GitHub Desktop is actually pretty damn cool. GitHub Dev is really cool as well. I'll let you play with that. We're just going to use a plain old text editor, and we're going to do all of the different types of blocks. Okay, and we're going to actually have a sample of each. Heading is a block. Okay, so a heading itself is a block. Now, strictly speaking, you can have another one right away, but don't do that. Okay, don't do that. Blocks. This is, I'm gonna say something here that's gonna be controversial, but it always works better if you have a blank line between your blocks. And I guarantee you will see people that do not do this. And that's fine. The specification, the non-specification, does not require that there necessarily be a blank line, but there is more than one substantial application, including Pandoc, that for Pandoc flavor Markdown requires there to be a blank line separating the blocks. It makes it much more readable, in my opinion, and it'll just save you some headaches. So even though you could technically have this separating your blocks, and the beginning, you see how that's two blocks. This is technically two blocks, even though one's on one and one's on another. It's just easier to have that blank line. It's about at this point that I should say that blank lines, or lines that just have spaces in them, white space, depending on how the parser interprets that, usually that includes tabs, but not always, is a matter of taste. There's nothing wrong with that. It will end up putting it as two blocks. Okay, so that is the first block. The first type of block is a heading. The most important type of block is a paragraph. This is a paragraph that can have multiple lines in it, and this is going to be very controversial. Okay, so and it can also have formatting. So you'll see in the preview that it makes paragraph. Something right away you'll know, still the same paragraph, right? So you'll see this and it's the same. You see how I put it on the same one I wrapped it? Markdown, strictly speaking, does not see line returns as a separation. You remember that thing I said? I'm sorry, you guys can't see. Remember that thing I told you? I told you about like the having a blank line. Well, for a paragraph, you have to have a blank line. So if you have to have a blank line to end a paragraph block, might as well put a blank line after everything. It just makes it easier. It's more consistent. I'm sorry. Sorry, Luanda. Yeah. So this is a paragraph. As you can see, there's another one. This same. So all of these, when you click on preview here, you'll see they're still all wrapped together into a single paragraph. Now, did I not show it again? I did it again, didn't I? I'm so sorry. I'm such a bad streamer. Bad streamer. This is a paragraph. We have multiple lines in it. Still the same paragraph. Same. These things are all showing up as one paragraph, right? A non-wrapped paragraph. Now, this is extremely controversial, right? And I don't know how to get into this other than to show you what let me see. I don't know if I even want to get it. I tell you what, I'll do another video about it. Okay. I'm going to do another video about this. Let me make sure I put it in my thing. Extra. I'm going to put an extra in here. Extra. Should I wrap my paragraphs blocks or not? This is a hugely controversial topic. And there are some very definite advantages and disadvantages. You don't need that as a beginner. You don't need to understand that. You just need to know that anything here that has a line return is automatically in the same paragraph. But, you could have just done this, and this is kind of making my point. Here is a bunch of other stuff. And, that'll still be the same paragraph, right? And it automatically wrapped because I'm putting it in here, right? Well, what if I had a line like this, and then I had another line like this? You see how this kind of gets at the problem. This is still a single paragraph. You know what I mean? Because the line returns are ignored. Ugly. Really ugly. And you get like, well, is this a paragraph or not? Right? Just pick one. You know what I mean? Just pick one. I personally am more a fan of just using. I don't put any line returns in there, and one of the reasons is because of something that you need to know about paragraphs. The paragraph block. We're not going to get into all the cool things you can do to the text inside the paragraph block. That will come in another video called inline formatting. So look for that video if you want to know how to do bold and all that. Okay. That's called inline formatting. But somebody has already guessed what I'm about to say. If you get into the habit of doing this, if you get into the habit of wrapping your own things like this, you can very easily make a mistake and put 2 spaces at the end. And if you have a space at the end, even though you can't see it, you now have a problem because it will make it's not doing it. Oh my God. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, see that? Still the same paragraph. What did it do there? You see what it did? It used one of the things one of the most controversial, horrible things. We'll talk about it when we do formatting again. When you put 2 spaces at the end before a line return, it's the same as inserting a line break. And so, do you want a line break? Maybe you do, maybe you don't, maybe you just forgot and you put extra spaces at the end and now you have new lines and you're like, why does my paragraph look so weird? All right. This is the reason that I do not use, it took me a long time. I used to be a big wrapper kind of guy. And now I'm not. Now if it's a paragraph, it's one big long line. It's one big long line effectively, and that just saves me from the hassle of dealing with line returns that might sneak in, and then I get what I want, the same thing I want all the time. There are a couple obvious cases of using double spaces to do things. One of the things might be roses are red, space, space, enter. Violets are blue, but there's actually better ways to do this, in my opinion. So, there might be times when you want to force those line breaks in the middle of your block. And there are tons of MD linters that prevent this. In fact, Jay has been talking to us about they're making their own tool. And it's funny, they mentioned that ATX headings are not even supported in their tool. So a lot of people don't like the double line thing. So it's worth mentioning to you. So now you know, okay? Normally I would cover that whole line return thing as a part of inline formatting, because technically it's an inline format token, but you get the point, right? So the second type of block is a paragraph. The first type is a heading. The third type of block, there's kind of two types to it. Both of these are called lists. So I'm going to call the third type as a list, and there's a subtype of list. The first type of list that you know is what's called an unordered lists. So here's a thing, another thing. And I don't know if you noticed, but when I hit enter, it detects that I have a list. Yet another thing. This is called a bulleted list. It's actually called, it's called an ordered list, because the way it's rendered completely depends on the renderer. I'm going to say this, do not count on bullets and on circles being there. There is no rule that says an ordered list has to have bullets. It can have any number of things. In fact, when you use one, is a real-time preview or typing as you're typing in Markdown, there are ways to do that using at different types of editors. There are. When you use VS Code, one of the best reasons to use VS Code is you can see real-time sorts of things like that, and it'll show you. I use terminal-based stuff, and it actually kind of sort of shows me. VS Code, any type of Markdown automatically displays with a previewer right next to it. And we haven't gotten to that point yet. We will get into editors when we talk about writing code, and that includes a look at VS Code, the number one graphic-based editor, as well as Vim and NeoVim and all the things that people like on the command line. So, but for right now, as you can see, I was kind of going back and forth. So preview, here you go. You can see that this is a bullet. Okay. Now, it goes without saying that there's going to be another type of block here. And somebody's going to ask, can I do sub list items? The answer is yes, but we're not going to quite do that yet. We'll get to that in just a second. There's also stack edit. There's a number. Actually, do you have the URL for that CD? There are a number of sites where you can do Markdown that will do better than GitHub, but I didn't want to overwhelm people. Yeah. So I think in browser Markdown. Yeah. Oh gosh, my eyes are now gone. I have lost my eyes. Extended Markdown support. This is cool. Start writing. Yes, please. Please make it dark mode. I want dark mode. Where's my dark mode? Stack 5 minutes. Please next. Skip. Where's dark mode? So stackedit.io. This is one of many of them. There are a bunch of them. And by the way, if you don't want to watch my video, you can just go through here. The reason I'm doing a video at all is I want you to see that there are some things that I don't think you should do. And so I'm going to have a chance to talk about. There's KTeX, which is MathJax, which we'll get to. So anyway, you can play with that for then. Let's go back to our GitHub. Don't use the previews. You can info with your writing, having something not look like you want it to be. Yeah. Some people use Obsidian. I hate Obsidian for reasons I'll talk to you later about that. So anyway, the next block type is bullets. And I do think we should have videos about all the different editors out there, and I appreciate your guys' recommendations. But right now, we're just using good old GitHub to show you what things look like on GitHub. This is called an order list. So 1, to, now this is actually one of the times when I really don't like, I really don't like what GitHub has chosen to do here. Some of these editors think they're helping you by changing the syntax of Markdown and doing the auto numbering. But here's the problem with this. Some of these things are smart enough to reorder it, right? So like if I copy this and I do enter here and I paste it, it's going to do it's going to reorder it or whatever, right? But I'm not a fan of this. And the reason I'm not a fan of this is because if you stick, I'm warning you right now, you can make your own decisions. But I'm warning you right now, if you stick with the ones, you will be happier. And the reason you'll be happier is, let me give you an example. So look at what I'm doing in here. Can I read that the numbers are right now? No, I can't. But what happens when I want to reorder something? Oh, I want to put this one up here, right? By using the one dot and keeping it the one dot and not using the auto numbering, you're not forcing everybody after you to use the same auto number formatting. If you don't use the one, if you use an auto number like we just did, first of all, there's nothing that says it even has to be a number, period, right? It just says ordered. What if somebody wants to use the letter A or any number of other things? And if you go what I'm talking about, go look at myskillstack.io when you look at these rendered things, right? So when you look at the rendered ones here, you say learn Markdown, A, B, C, D, right? So the whole point of Markdown ordered lists is making a very unique, very centralized, very common way to do ordered numbering, and then let the renderer do the numbering. Don't do the numbering in the thing. And so this is one of the biggest gripes I have with these kinds of tools, is a lot of them will try to do the numbering for you, and a lot of them say yes, we're not going to fight about editors right now, please. Yeah, this is nightmare, right? The whole build to Markdown, yes, okay. So anyway, Markdown is the thing. And this is the way we're going to use it. And I'll tell you, I like, editors are a very personal choice, and I have my choices. We're not going to fight about those right now. Can you turn off auto number? You know what? I don't know. I imagine we probably can. I've never tried it, actually. It does use spaces, no wrap. Oh, look at that. Line mode, no wrap. I don't know. Maybe there is. There probably is. If you find it, let me know. Obviously, I don't use this for my Markdown, but you might. If you do find that, please let us know. So anyway, let's get through the rest of the block types. We got quite a few to go. Not a lot, but so before we leave, I mean, God, look at that. Did you see how confused it is? That's not a new block type. This is broken, in my opinion. Anyway, so we have what's called an ordered list and an ordered list here and an unordered list. The reason I'm using those words very specifically. The term ordered and unordered come from the HTML specification. The reason they didn't say bulleted and numbered is because there's no guarantee that they be bulleted and numbered, and I want you to know that when you get into this, okay? The terminology is ordered and unordered. So we have an ordered list here, here, and an unordered list here. The unordered list can be rendered however you want to in your renderer by default with numbers, but the token that's being looked for is a one dot followed by an optional space. By the way, it's probably worth mentioning that in your bulleted lists, that space is not always required, but is a really good idea. In fact, I would suggest that you should always put a space after your tokens. In this case, a one dot, and then a single space as a token. It just makes your stuff easier to read, and it will go down. It is a superset of HTML, yes. I think it's fair to stick with HTML naming, yes. You can also use A, B, and C for your ordered list, but I would not do that. Again, everybody's going to have different opinions on this. My suggestions are based on the least amount of things to remember the least amount of mnemonic overhead. I do not want to have to think about how to do a bulleted list. Not only that, but the methods that I'm telling you, these list items, these work in Medium, they work in Slack, they work in lots of things where other things are not supported. So a lot of the things, wonderful things people are suggesting, I happen to know for a fact are not supported by other Markdown ish kinds of things, such as Slack. And so these recommendations are being based on what I've personally experienced to be the most common out there. And that's why I call it basic Markdown. It's less to remember, it works in the most number of places, and you're less likely to be surprised by a tool. It's one of the reasons I don't like some of the tools like Obsidian that encourage diversion from things that are usable across the board. Everybody wants a common standard where you can get that. Some people use dashes here. I have people who swear by dashes, and I actually could be convinced to use dashes here. You know what? I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you, Pink Rubber Boots. Just supported as a list in all parsers. Yeah. I think star is supported. You know what? I actually like that better. I think as of this day, I'm going to change. My buddy that I work with swears by dashes as well for all the same reasons that you just cited. And one of the biggest reasons to do this is because of this. This is watch what happens. You see that? It tries to make it bold. Actually, if I put this on the other side, it'll try to make it into a thing. Oh, sorry. Gosh, sorry guys. So watch. Oh God, I'm gonna use dashes from now on. Thank you for saying that. This is why we have a community, because we can help each other out. So one of my peers said that they use Dash and that because it supported all over and it was easier and it was cleaner, and it also plays well. It plays better with this, which is a GitHubism. You see that? So the bulleted items become. I see a strong case for using Dash. So much so I'm going to change my practice from now on to start using Dash. It's another reason to use dashes, in my opinion. Is bold and italic. We're not going to do bold and italic yet, but that's actually one of the reasons to do this. Let me show you. Like if I'm here and I'm using if I'm using a bulleted list, like it's like something other thing and dash here, right? But if I'm using a this, and if I do it wrong, you see that? Look what just happened. Did you see how all my formatting changed? Did you see that? Now we haven't done bold yet, but that, because there's no space there and I'm trying to do a bulleted item, it thinks that all of this stuff is bold. So to me, that convinces me to use dash, because if I screw up dash, it's still fine. Now it's not a bulleted list, because the bulleted list item needs a space there in Pandoc anyway. But it doesn't blow away everything else. I really like the idea of a dash. Not to mention that you can do the other thing like this. So I'm a huge fan of the dash. I have done the bullets because they look like bullets for a long time. But I think that you can use any numbers from the top level. You can, but don't. I'm telling you, people, don't do it, because you're making it so you can't cut and paste it into something else, right? So one of the reasons, okay, so since we're talking about lists, let's get into sublists, okay? So now this is where things get kind of weird, because we talked about the two types. So this is what's called an ordered list type. So let's do that. Here comes an ordered, let's see, unordered list. Let's see. And here is an ordered list. And I think simplicity is key, not to mention compatibility. So again, with Markdown, this is a constant issue because there's so many different ways to do Markdown, because it was never standardized. I mean, there was a common mark standard, which we'll get into, but so here we go. So we have a list and an unordered list. Now, I'm gonna pause here. If you're using Medium, so if you medium.com, which is where a lot of people do blogging, you are not allowed to use nested list items. So before I get into nested list items, I want to encourage you to do one thing. I want to encourage you to try to keep your lists at the top level. Almost always, when you're trying to do a nested list item, you're starting to depart from clarity, and you're creating like a really huge table of contents or something like that. And there are very valid reasons for doing that. One of those being what I'm doing here, right? So what I'm doing here is, now the thing that's going to blow your mind is that this is another list. This is a list inside of another list, right? And so, I mean, but this is an outline. So an outline is a pretty clear usage of that. But what I'm going to say again is, if you can maintain the simplicity, particularly if you're communicating in an article style or a blog, try to stick with single top level lists and maybe present another list at the top level with its own introduction. I'm just going to encourage you to do that. A lot of people don't do that. If you are planning to write on Medium, you have to do that. They've made that a mandatory thing. So now that we have this, you know that you can actually do a sublist. Now, this is where the Markdown convention breaks down. It breaks down big time. And this is going to be one of the first times that we're going to look at the common mark specification. Oh my Lord, a sub bomb. Thank you so much for the sub bomb. Holy moly. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for the sub bomb. I have to take a moment out of that. Is fantastic. I might have to change views though, because I think the alerts are going to be going up for a while. Let me turn the Twitch alerts off for a second. Thank you so much for the subs. That was really great. Thank you. All right, so back to where we are here. So we're looking at Markdown, and oh God, what am I doing? All right, so here are the two lists that we have, and we're just keeping it at the high level. Now, you might think, okay, I want to have a thing. I also have a thing under a thing. So I'm going to type one. I'm going to type two letters in. I'm going to put a space. I'm going to put a sub thing. Right? Now let's actually preview this. This is where stuff gets really messed up. Okay, now that one saw that as a sub thing, right? But if you do that inside of certain other languages, it will not be the same. And this is the first time, so I'm actually going to do a search here, common mark specification. So I was going to save this for a separate video, but we're going to go ahead and jump in. Actually, no, we're not. I'll do this video separately. We do need to know, yeah, we need to do Y common mark, extra Y common mark. I'll do that after we do these common mark. So sorry for the divergence there. God damn it, that is going to kill my eyes, my friends. I don't know what's going on there. Sorry for your eyes. I really apologize. I'll try not to. So here we go. So heading is a block. So we got a sub thing here, and in the edit here, we're gonna try this here. So I'm gonna say, let's try to do this. So 1, 2 spaces, and we can say 1 dot. You could say 1 dot. I don't know, dot 1. How about that? Let's try that and say preview. And we get, oh, it didn't work. Why didn't it work? Right? The reason it didn't work is because there's no standard here. So whereas a bulleted list in Get It Flavored Markdown needs 2 spaces to indicate a sub item, when it comes to an ordered list, it doesn't see it the same way. You can use dash inside the ordered list. Yeah, but technically speaking, when you're doing that, you're combining lists. So let's stick with the same type of list. And this is where you start to lose people. Oh my Lord. Oh my Lord. Thank you for that. Level 5 hype train. Holy cow. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so here we have another list item. Oh my goodness. This is crazy. I guess we have wow. That is like insane. We reached our goal and everything. You guys are the best. I I am so happy. Go back. I'll keep working hard here. I so appreciate it, my friends. That's fantastic. Okay, so here we have another ordered list, and we can see that this one didn't. Now this again. This is where we diverge from the standard because there is no standard. There at this point there's no standard, right? So GitHub has decided that if there's two spaces, you get a sub bullet, right? And when we're over here, if you have two spaces, you don't get a sub bullet for a numbered list. Now that's pretty damn annoying, and I want you all to see how annoying that is, because what the hell, right? How do I do it consistently? Well, it turns out that the people who made Pandoc and Common Mark decided, well, we need to make it so that it's consistent. So if you had four spaces, now you have consistency, right? How would you possibly know that as a beginner? Right? So now we have one I, and it apparently now it sees it as a sub thing. Now, why did it pick one instead? Why did it pick that number instead of some other number? Is that it has nothing to do with, by the way, with the number. So actually, let's try 3. What does 3 do? 3 does the same thing. So it turns out that GitHub Flavor Markdown needs 3 or more. I actually use 4 consistently throughout because that's what most use. So if you're going to use sub numbers, I strongly encourage you to use 4. And here's another example. So if I want to do a sublist in Pandoc, which also uses a Markdown technology, and I do 1, 2, and I want to put something here, it sees it because it understands it until it gets rendered. And the reason it doesn't work is because it uses a Python Markdown renderer. You see what I'm saying? It gets really confusing because everybody does Markdown slightly differently. So I want you to be aware of all those differences. So when you go into it, you can take away the most common usage. And that's when we're going to watch the video about Common Mark. But when it comes to nested lists, these are very, very problematic. And the only way that I know of to have it be consistent is to always use 4 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you use 4 spaces, that is observed by Python Markdown. It's observed by Pandoc. It's observed by Common Mark and GFM. And the reason that the number of spaces for nested list items is so problematic is it was never specified in the original Markdown Perl program. So that is one reason to have a specification. So as you can see, if you put 4 here, you're safe, right? And you get the sub list item. So I think that's enough for us to leave blocks, to leave the nested list item blocks. The other piece of this to know is, as somebody already mentioned, you can nest other blocks in here, and strictly speaking, you can nest any block in here. It doesn't have these list items, these list items are very confusing because strictly speaking, you have an entire Markdown document available underneath each nested list item. And believe me, if you're writing a parser, it's a pain in the butt. So 1, 2, 3, 4, I can have bullet 1, and I could have bullet 2, and you can see that we get our bullets underneath our other list. This is not just that's not the only thing you can do. You can actually have another blank line, and you can put a full-blown paragraph here. As long as it's here, this is a paragraph. You see how this gets really crazy? Remember that thing I said at the beginning? Remember that thing I said you might want to avoid the use of these before you, before you start thinking that you can use this as a way to create a numbered header document. I got to strongly recommend that you don't do that, because you just will run into problems where stuff does not consist. What I want you to see here is that this unordered bulleted list block, and another block, this is a paragraph. These 2 blocks appear inside of this 2 block. So this is a block, and then these are sub blocks that are contained within this outer block. And let's give you just a little bit of preview of the HTML involved for this. It is a pain in the butt. Look at all the div stuff here. It doesn't even look like HTML. This is what they call div soup. You see here, there's a paragraph. Here comes the ordered list. They even have a paragraph data. Damn, they didn't even use HTML. There it is, ordered list. And then there's the list item. See, there's a list item. We're going to do all this HTML, but what would you rather learn, Markdown or HTML after seeing that, right? Okay, so the takeaway from this is quite simple. Let's keep it simple. Let's keep it simple. Let's try to not use a bunch of nested things. If you're going to nest, you can, but just be really careful. And seriously, the main takeaway is use 4 spaces for your sub list items. Use 4 spaces, okay? 4 spaces. And there's a lot of them. There's npm. There's a ton of them. There's npm for Markdown creation. The reason that we're talking about Markdown generically in the most universal way possible right now is because everybody does it differently slightly, and it's hard. It's hard to know what to do that's going to work with everything. The only way to know that is to have extensive experience with all of the different tools that are out there, and that's something that I personally obsessed with. I've written my own Markdown parsers. I've written my own meta languages that parse meta definitions of other languages so that I can write my own language parsers. And I got to tell you, this is one of the most problematic places in the documentation world. So there are a lot of tools out there. Okay, we got to get through the rest of the blocks video. This has been a long one, but I appreciate everything that's happened here. So what do we have so far? We have a heading block. We have a paragraph block. That includes the blank line, by the way. We have another paragraph block, and then we have a unordered list block. And each of these, strictly speaking, each of these is also these. I wasn't going to say it before, but I'm going to say it now. Each of these is what's called a list item block. So this is a list item. This here is both a list and a list block and a list item block. So this entire thing is a list block, and the list block is broken up into list item blocks. This is a list item block, this is a list item block, and this is a list item block. And as you can see, the list items can have inside themselves, they can have their own blocks. So down here we have that this here is a list block. This here is, this is a list item, right? This is a list block with one list item. Then we have another list item that contains its own list block with 2 list items, and so on. And it gets very, very, very hairy. And so, you just need to make a decision about what we're going to use, what tools you're going to use. But that is a block. Okay, so the list blocks, as you can see, I think are some of the most confusing. There's also what happens if there's spaces, right? What happens if there's a space between 2 blocks? This is a very unpredictable behavior. As you can see, 1, 2, 3, right? Now, it did not start over. Right? If I do this, what is it going to do? This behavior is defined differently depending on the tool you're using. In GitHub, it keeps it all in the same item. You put another thing here, something else, you put another block type in there, and you preview that, and that starts the numbering over because it sees it as a new block. These are something called long lists in the specification, and I don't want to get into it. It's a pain. It's a real pain. So maybe not use it. If you're going to have a list, kind of keep it clean. Sometimes if you have like a long paragraph, maybe you would want to do that and have a numbered paragraph list. I guess that would be something you might want to consider, but go ahead and take a look at that. Let's get on with the rest of the blocks though. So we have a heading block, we have a paragraph block, we have an unordered items list block, we have an ordered list block, and we have another couple very esoteric block types, but we're going to stick with the most important ones. Probably one of the most important tech blocks that you'll ever see is this one. Yeah, partials to write your own tags. Yeah, that kind of stuff is out of scope. But yeah, those are cool things. There's been a lot of stuff here. So we're going to use what's called a fence. This is called a code. I call it a code fence. It's called a fence, and officially it has multiple uses. So in here we can write code, right? So if we wanted to write a little bit of shell code, bin sh echo hello world, and we could write a little bit of shellcode in there. And this, somebody who's watching this video is going to give me a bunch of stuff about this, but I want you to learn it the simplified way, and then you can embellish and learn all the other ways. Okay, let's go ahead and render this, preview this. As you can see, it makes it this really pretty shell. Isn't that cool? And you're saying to yourself, well, wouldn't it be better if it had syntax highlighting? Hold on to your horses. Here we go. So by putting the name of the language, and you can pretty much guess, you can just save that, and the Markdown tool will automatically render it for you. So in this case, you see that it put that in gray, and it's using a tool to do the rendering. I do think it's interesting that as soon as I made it into shell, you can click over here, you can cut and paste this, and all kinds of really amazing things with this. Okay, these are the most important components of you making notes, right? If you're taking notes, this is going to be one of the most important ways to do that. Here is a code fence, and I'm picking my language terms very specifically here because it's called a fence post. God, it's so hard to do. So we're gonna go ahead and preview that, make sure it still works. So some people call this a verbatim or whatever. This is generally how you will do code. Oh wow, look at that! I lost my syntax. Oh no, I'm looking at it the wrong way. Okay, so that is a code fence, right? And that's all you need to learn right now. Okay. Having said that, you should know that you can put as many dashes here of 3 and more. You can put like a dozen of them, right? But why? And I'm going to make a case for using the simplest possible thing in the most consistent way. 3 backticks is supported by Slack and Discord. 5 is not. All right. 3 is, it's become, even though it wasn't standardized that way, that's become the standard. By using 3, you can look through your code very quickly, and you can find all your code blocks because you know exactly where they are. Now, the original designers of Markdown wanted you to be able to have a lot of flexibility there. And one of the other ways to do this, and there's really only one use case, but what if I want to include Markdown in my code fence? Okay. There's really only one case for this, but you can also use these tildes, right? And then you can put Markdown. And you can say this. You can say sh, right? So if I want, this is a very edge case, but if I wanted to do this, right? If I wanted to put my own example show you the Markdown for my example, I need something else. So in that particular weird case, you could use these triples. You could use tildes, or you could even use a 4th tilde if you want to show using tildes. You can get kind of inception about the whole thing, keep going down and down the rabbit hole. But as you can see, the thing that's so cool about this is that this actually shows you the Markdown, and it also syntax highlights the stuff inside of it, which I find particularly intelligent in terms of parsing. It's a very, very intelligent parser to be able to pull that off. That's very hard to do that. But if you want to improve your chances, oh, by the way, there's the symbol for Markdown is down in the corner there. So those are called code blocks or code fences. They're also sometimes called verbatim sections. And the reason for that is because there's another form of this that does not use the fences. And strictly speaking, they are the same things, even though everybody deals with them differently. And but what about blocks that just start with spaces? Okay, so I have to show you this because it's kind of mandatory, but I never use it. I never ever use what I'm about to show you. If I go because the number of spaces is different on every single system. If I do 1, 2, 3, 4, I can do this. I can say this is some verbatim code. right? And I could actually cut and paste, like an emoji or something. Um, you know, um, hello, you know, and by doing this, you see it already changed it in the preview. You'll see it too here. See that? This is verbatim code. Now, you can't tell it what syntax to use for this. Um, so, like, why would you do that? Um, Honestly, I don't know why. The only reason I would ever use that would be if I were going to maybe do cut and paste some ASCII art or something. But this is literally the same thing as a code fence version. My take in this is don't do it. Just don't. It's not worth it. It's not worth it because you have to maintain the indentation. Um, I don't even know how to remove the indents. I'm using my mouse. I don't normally use a mouse. So this is exact. But why when this is the same? I think you should fence everything. I personally think you should use a fence for everything because you can find it. There's literally no way to search for in your document. There's no way to search for that verbatim text if you use tabs only. You can search for everything that is indented for spaces, but that would give you everything in the bulleted list too. So there's really no reason to do that. I think you should do this personally. Not to mention the fact that this is not supported in Slack or Reddit or anything. These code fences that's supported everywhere. Discord. So that's that kind of way of doing it. Thank you for the follow. Um, so we're getting very close to the end of all of the different block types, the major block types. So again, there's headings, there are lists, there's paragraphs, there's code fences, those, and then there's verbatim blocks. Those are the main types. There's one last one that's worth mentioning. You'll occasionally see this used, and this is a leftover for here is something from an 80s email with a bunch of lines that I have to have arrow on every line. Okay, so quotations are problematic. And so let's look at them. This is really the last block type besides reference blocks, which are kind of special and we'll talk about when we do links. But you see how it puts the thing here showing that that's a quotation. Now, some people use this and they really seriously abuse this. It makes it very hard to support. So they'll put, because, okay, how do I say this? A quotation block is literally a separate Markdown document, which means you can do this. You can say, I want an unordered list, bar, and when you preview it, you can have that be a list, because a quotation itself, a quotation block is itself a full Markdown document. And when it comes to parsing, it's annoying. It's also the same thing with list items, but that's a separate topic altogether. That recursion becomes really problematic. What's even more problematic is how do you maintain it? Like trying to edit this thing from the command line or stuff is a pain in the butt. And so I'm going to put a thing here. Rob suggests just using single line paragraph quotations, because if you only have a single line, look at this blank line between, watch what happens. So you see how it is a separate quotation, right? But if I can't tell you how many times I have been like trying to maintain a quotation. I'm like, okay, fine, damn it, I want it to be part of the other one, so I have to put a little arrow there. You know what I mean? And so my take, first of all, I don't use quotations very much. You can use quotations all over. You can use them in again, in Slack and Discord and stuff like that. Better to just use quotations for long paragraphs. And in my opinion, it's better to just do it that way. You can do it however you want. I try to go to toggle preview mode, Control plus Shift plus M. That's a lot of things. Control Shift M. Control Shift M. No, it doesn't work for me. Not on my keyboard anyway. Maybe I'm pushing the wrong thing. Yeah, no, not for me. I say Control Shift plus M to toggle the tab key moves focus. All right. Escape and then tab to move to the next interactive element pitch. I don't care. Anyway, guys. So yeah, Control Shift M does not work for me. I'm so sad. Why doesn't it work? I do not know. It does not work. This is one of the reasons I don't like graphic editors. With Vim, I know exactly what I'm going to get every time. I never have to second guess it. Graphic editors are like whatever. Yeah, try Windows Shift M. Yeah, let's spend 20 minutes trying to figure out how this one works. Yeah, nothing. Nope. Command Shift M. We're gonna end up losing all our code. Let's go ahead and save our code before we screw around with it more, because I don't want to break it. Yeah, I don't like. I have very bad success with graphic editors in general. I just want shit to work. I mean, stuff to work. Sorry for the swords. I've been trying not to. Anyway, so there we go. Those are the major block types. So we have a heading, we have paragraph, we have ordered list, unordered lists. We have code fences, we have verbatim blocks, we have quotations, and those are the main types. There is another type called a reference list, and we will talk about that later when we talk about links and inline stuff, which is going to get its own video. Is there any block type that I missed? Let's actually ask ChatGPT. What are the Markdown block types? Let's see what ChatGPT has to say. Headings, paragraphs, block quotes, code blocks, fenced code blocks, lists, tables. Oh, we forgot tables. We forgot horizontal lines, tables, nested blocks, links, and images. We forgot links too. I forgot some stuff. I forgot some stuff. Thank you, ChatGPT, for reminding me. Okay, so we did fenced code blocks. We did code blocks. We did lists. We did not do tables. We did not. Horizontal line is so easy. Okay, so the only thing you should know for horizontal lines, honest to God, my friends, just do the easy stuff. I'm not even kidding. Stick with 4 dashes, okay? Stick with 4 dashes. Let's see. It's actually not even a horizontal line. It's actually a semantic separator. So it's in Pandoc. It's not called a horizontal line. It's usually rendered as a horizontal line, but it doesn't have to be. Four dashes together. So the reason that I think you should just stick with this is so you can find it, you can search for it. This is one of those things that's like really crazy. Don't get crazy with this, with all the different options. There are crazy numbers of options for this. You can actually do, you can do stars. So you can do stars. You can intermix stars. And the idea originally was to, create this really artistic ASCII art in your Markdown. But that's horrible if you're talking about making a documentation database. You don't want that. You want to be able to search through and find everything, and you can't do that if you vary what you do as your horizontal rule. Just use 4 dashes, my friends. I'm telling you. Stick with 4 dashes, and you'll be good to go. You'll be very happy. Technically, that is a block. So, thank you, ChatGPT, for reminding us. What else did we forget? Tables. Tables is, we did nested lists, by the way. Let's see what the ones we did cover. We did cover nested blocks. We need to do links and images, which we can't really do links and images until we do inline. And so we'll do links and images as a part of the inline stuff. You can actually have HTML. Just don't use HTML. I'm going to put that in there right now. Never include HTML in your Markdown. It is not even allowed in most markdowns, including Pandoc. Why? Because by including HTML in your markdown, you force every parser to have everything to support the entire HTML syntax. And GitHub tries to say, well, you can use this subset of HTML things that we consider safe. You can never remember what they are. In fact, the only HTML thing that I would even consider using in Markdown is a comment. And there's no way to write comments in Markdown except maybe a comment. So if you wanted to turn off part of your document, you could use an HTML comment. This HTML is this Markdown content. Which, by the way, this is not a Markdown thing. That's actually an SGML comment, which predates HTML. So is disabled and will be invisible when rendered. Okay, so I would say comment, but even then, why are you putting comments in your documents, right? Especially since you're just don't do it. So there's no comments there. As I said, so just don't do the HTML. You can embed HTML. Basically, Gruber said when they made his Perl script to do this, when Gruber made his Perl script to write all this stuff, he did a thing where it's like, well, since it's gonna Markdown was the specification for the original Markdown says that Markdown will only be rendered as HTML, and based on the original creation of Markdown, that very line in the sand bullet point of the original design requires Markdown to be rendered as HTML. And Markdown, I'm going to tell you right now, Markdown has grown well beyond the confines of being rendered as HTML. People have written entire books in Markdown. Multi-mark, there's many different people write slideshows in Markdown. People do, chat in Markdown. There's so many different usages of Markdown now that, like it or not, whether Gruber likes it or not, who's been very hands-off with his whole dealing with the whole Markdown thing. He was asked to be part of his specifications team and just thumbed his nose at the whole thing. Which, if you compare it to JGM, the guy who created Pandoc has been striving for standardization of the whole thing. It's quite a contrast. Anyway, so this is way more about Markdown than you ever wanted to know. So by saying Markdown automatically includes all HTML, the complexity of a parser to handle and a renderer to handle Markdown goes through the roof. Now you need to have basically an entire web browser built into your renderer. Whereas if you're just dealing with Markdown itself only, you don't have that. So many things have decided to turn that off. Pandoc flavored Markdown explicitly forbids any HTML. GitHub flavored Markdown explicitly forbids most HTML for the sake of security concerns, right? So when you go out on the internet and you read that snide comment that says, just put an HTML, class tag in there or something and you'll be good to go, because all Markdown must support HTML, just know that that's like a really, really bad thing to do, because you're going to create documentation that's going to go into your knowledge base, which is not going to be parsable and usable by most things. And most things are going to see that as line noise and they're not going to use it. So just don't do it. Don't use HTML in your Markdown. That should probably have been its own video. Oh, well. Links and images we're going to do in a separate video when we talk about inline formatting. Technically, they are blocks, but we're going to cover that. Let's see, nested blocks, we already talked about that. The stuff inside block quotes or list items. Horizontal lines we did. Last thing we need to do is tables. And this is actually an interesting one because tables are not allowed in Markdown. This was added to Markdown. They are not a part of the original Markdown. I'm going to say that again. This is probably why I forgot it. Tables are not a part of the original Markdown, and they still have yet to be specified. They're not even a part of Common Mark. The Common Mark specification does not define tables. However, there have been multiple extensions of Markdown that have allowed tables, and that includes GitHub flavored Markdown. So let's do tables. So a table, the simplest. There's many types of tables that are supported. The easiest. It's not to me. It's not really the easiest. These are a pain. They really are. But if you want to do a table, actually, let me write. We'll just do one. Okay, so the top part. Let's start out with this. Let's say like name, and then a bar, and then we could say color, favorite color. All right, and then you have a dash in between. If you want to, you can make them spaced out so they look nice and they look pretty. But I swear they have like tools that'll help you maintain your tables. But yeah, and then you can say Rob. I don't know. Today my favorite color is blue. Doris. She likes. It's like turquoisey. It's I don't know. I don't even know the name. Turquoise. Anyway, my control thing is not working, so I have to go through and click on the previewer. So again, oh wow, it didn't work. What did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? I did something wrong. Do I have to have the colons? I don't think I do. Oh, is it missing this? Maybe. I thought you could get away with not using the. I guess not. I mean, you don't. Oh no! I know what it is. You can't skip the first one. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, because that's the one that triggers it being a table. Yeah. Duh. Okay, so you do need that. That needs it. That needs to be there. I forgot. Yep. All right, so let's try that. These are the easiest tables to write. They're not that pretty. Those are not pretty tables. Those are really not pretty tables when it comes to how you're gonna, maintain them. Now, if you want them to be, left justified, you put this over here, and then all this stuff will be, right justified. If you put 2, it'll be centered by default. It's usually left justified. And then you do your preview. God, I'm hating going back and forth like this. Maybe we should zoom out. Can you guys still see it? Okay. So there we go. You see how the names are now right justified. So that's it. That's tables. Tables are really easy to do. I don't normally keep them looking pretty because I want to change the content and I don't want to screw around with spaces all the time. But if you wanted to make them look pretty, you could. The default is left justified. If you want to center it, then you do like this, 2 of these around, 2 colons around it, and then it makes it center. They do have to match up, and I mean, don't even go there. There's other ways to do this. And Pandoc has a different way of doing tables as well, but this is literally called GFM tables. They are the supported format under Google. And as I said, they are not a part of the Common Mark specification. In fact, if you look for the latest version, if you search for, God, this is hurting my eyes so badly. I'm so sorry. Footnotes, tables, is there? What conventions of footnotes and other document elements? There are no tables in here, period. So there. That's why. So, I think that's it, my friends. This has been a long video, to get through the Markdown thing. But there, we got all the Markdown blocks. And then probably the last Markdown video we will do, with regard to the syntax, is going to be inline elements and images. And we will do that next. So once you have this done, you can, you have something to save, and you can click on commit changes, and then you can go back and read about it, using your own document. I don't have to tell you that there are like literally thousands of Markdown tutorials out there online. I always use ChatGPT to edit table. Does ChatGPT do tables? It does? ChatGPT actually formats your tables in Markdown? Wow, I did not know that. I'll have to try that. So, um, so hopefully that has been enough about blocks. There's been a lot in this video, um, and I mean, it's this video has been filled with opinions that are based on a lot of experience using at least a dozen, if not more, Markdown renderers, including writing my own. So I'm strongly going to encourage you to consider these simplifications before you go down the rabbit hole of picking one flavor. Even the tables that you use, that you're already picking a flavor. For the sake of the beginner boost, we are picking GitHub flavored Markdown as our flavor. There are two more major videos that need to be made that go with this. The one is the inline formatting elements, bold and italic and all that. How to link to things, the inclusion of images, which is probably going to be a separate video, and the use of things like to include math form notation like MathJax and KTech and LaTeX and all that. And that's particularly for scientific computing and those kinds of things. So those will be separate videos. Look for those and stay tuned. So go give this a try. You can start taking notes right now.